Hi everybody, it's Andy, and welcome again to my office in Los Altos, California. I'm an attorney licensed to practice law in California as well as New York, and in this video I'm going to go over the filing and pressing of criminal charges. So the genesis of this video basically is that if you go online, essentially, if you go online and you search for it, you'll see a lot of people who post the query of, okay, I've been the victim of a crime, somebody injured me, somebody stole my property, somebody destroyed my property. How do I go about filing charges against this person? Or how do I go about pressing charges against this person who, committed this crime against me, for example? And I mean, some of you who are watching this video probably know the answer to this and go like, well, yeah, I mean, it's obvious. I'm assuming that a lot of people out there don't know the answer to this, given how frequently I see the question online. So I'm going to answer it here. In general, in California at least, and I'm pretty sure in every other state in the US also, the victim of a crime does not file charges. The victim of a crime does not press charges. The pressing of charges, that term, pressing charges, with one exception, I think, is going to be basically, Hollywood make-believe. It's something you see on TV, you see in the movies. It's not something that really happens in real life. The one exception that I can think of, if you can think of other exceptions, go ahead and leave me a comment down below. But the one exception that I can think of, just kind of sitting here, is that if, for example, a crime happens, the police come, and the officer takes, his or her report, and at the end of the report, the officer might ask you, okay, sir, do you wish to press charges against this person? Do you wish to proceed, basically? In my experience, the officer generally asks that in order to basically ascertain, okay, well, the case by itself is relatively minor. Maybe we could let it go with a citation. Maybe we could, let it go kind of generally, like, not do anything at all. But if the victim decides that they want to pursue it, the officer will generally note that in their police report, and the district attorney, for example, or the prosecuting attorney in your area might consider that, somehow. Yeah, so that's basically the only kind of situation I've ever encountered where the term pressing charges really kind of exists in real life. The officer will ask you, okay, you as the victim, do you wish to proceed? Do you wish, the prosecuting attorney to take some action against this? Yeah, so pressing charges in general, not really, I mean, it's not a legal term, but it is a term that, oftentimes will surface in a criminal case, but in a very limited instance. So I guess I alluded to the answer to the question a little bit just now, but the answer to the question of how does a crime victim press charges or file charges, in general, at least in California, and I'm pretty sure in every other state also, a crime victim doesn't file charges, doesn't press charges. So as I just explained, pressing charges, it's basically like there's no legal significance to it, like the officer just wants to know, so he or she can note it in their report. The filing of charges generally, the term varies, but it's basically going to be an attorney who works for the government in some way. So in California, at least, general crimes like car theft, murder, arson, that kind of thing, those crimes are generally going to be prosecuted at the county level. And in California, the county lawyers who do this are called district attorneys. So in California, there's going to be one district attorney, one individual district attorney who is elected, and that person will have a bunch of deputies, assistants, and so forth, assistant attorneys that work for them. And if you go to criminal court in California, generally it's going to be a deputy district attorney who handles the prosecution of the case. So the actual filing of charges, that's done by the district attorney in California. I want to say that in other states, Illinois for some reasons is what I'm thinking of, but in states like Illinois, the district attorney is basically called the state's attorney, the prosecuting attorney. I'm not sure what other terms I can kind of think of, but district attorney is what's used out here. State's attorney, I think, is what I see a lot of times for Illinois cases. Yeah, so if you are not in California or if you're in Illinois and I've gotten that wrong, leave me a comment down below about what the prosecuting attorney in your state or country or jurisdiction is called. Yeah, so anyway, hopefully that all made sense. The kind of takeaway from this video basically is that unfortunately you as the crime victim, if you are a crime victim, you generally don't file charges against the person who committed the crime against you. The filing of charges, that role is kind of designated for the government, county prosecutor, state's attorney, something like that. So the filing of charges is generally taken care of by the government. You as the victim generally don't do that. In the pressing of charges, as I explained earlier, pressing of charges, that's not really a thing. Like, that's basically a term of art, I guess. Like, you see it on TV, you see it in the movies. Generally, that doesn't happen in the real world. The only exception that I'm aware of off the top of my head is if the officer who interviews you, the officer who responds to your 911 call, for example, asks you, sir, as the victim of the crime, do you wish, to pursue this, or do you want me to just let this guy go? Do you just want to handle this via citation? What do you want to do? And at that point, you can indicate to the officer, yes, I'd like the charges to be filed against this person. Yeah. So the prosecuting attorney who reviews that report, maybe they'll give the crime victim's desires some weight. Maybe they won't. Who knows? Yeah. So this difference, hopefully I haven't, let the air out of anyone's bubble, any crime victim's bubble by saying this. But this difference about who files charges and so forth, like who files criminal charges, that's actually one difference between a civil case and a criminal case. So a criminal case, the filing of charges, that right, like the right to file charges and what charges to file and so on, that is generally reserved for the government in some way. So county prosecutor, state attorney general, United States attorney, whatever. So the filing of charges in criminal cases done by the government. If you, however, are the victim of a crime, what you can do, if you're so inclined, is you can consider suing this person civilly. So let's say, for example, somebody stole your car, and let's ignore insurance for a moment, but let's say somebody stole your car and they took it for a joyride and they crashed it, and it's going to take, let's just say $10,000 to fix. Again, ignoring insurance, ignoring subrogation, all that stuff. What you're basically talking about in a civil suit is, you as the crime victim are going to get your car back. Maybe you're going to repair it yourself and sue the guy who stole your car, for instance, sue him to make him pay you back the $10,000 it took to fix it. In some instances, that might work. In some instances, maybe the person who stole your car had no money, and suing civilly is just sort of pointless. There's a lot of scenarios like that. So anyway, hopefully all of that made sense. To recap once again, crime victims, at least in California, and I'm pretty sure in every other state in the United States also, crime victims do not file criminal charges. In so much as they can press charges. Generally, that's going to be something that the officer might ask you to say, okay, sir, as the crime victim, do you wish to have charges filed against this person? Do you wish to press charges? And the crime victim basically can say, yes, I do want charges filed. No, I don't. And that's basically it. As the crime victim, if you are a crime victim, your power, I guess, your ability generally is going to be this. Like, your ability to respond is basically going to be this. A crime happens to you. It's number one. You call the police or call the sheriff or call law enforcement in your area. You make a report. You tell them what happened, what injuries you have, what property you lost, etc. And, the officer might ask you, do you wish to press charges or do you not? The officer will write a report after that. That report will conclude with a recommendation usually of this report, in the officer's opinion, rather, XYZ charges are warranted. This report is being forwarded to the district attorney, the prosecuting attorney, etc., with the recommendation that these charges be filed, or something like that. So you, as the crime victim, your role in these steps right here, basically is to, one, call the police, two, cooperate with the police, and number three, if needed, cooperate with the prosecuting attorney once, or if, I guess, a case actually is filed. So again, that's how it is, I guess, basically. Like, I don't mean to make anybody disappointed, or I don't mean to let the air out of anyone's bubble, but hopefully you're not the victim of a crime ever, but if you are, I think you should know what your ability to, like, what you can do, what you can't do. So again, hopefully all that made sense. Go ahead and like, share, comment, subscribe. Go ahead and do all that stuff, and I will talk to you guys next time. Thanks.